What's up, and welcome to another live stream with Gizmos Live Tech. We've got the Scar 18 and the Titan 18HX here today. It's exciting. It's exciting because these are two of the very best gaming laptops for 2024. I think a lot of people will be choosing between these two, and we're gonna have see who wins for all of these different tests. There's a lot of games, a lot of benchmarks, RAM speed, SSD speed that we've added, Cinebench R23, fan noise for max speed at least, and a speaker test, software comparison. We're gonna do like a detailed side-by-side on all of the most of any of the key things that matter for when you're deciding between these two laptops. And yeah, there's a lot to consider when spending $5,000 on one of these top gaming laptops. So I'm going to try to help you out today, and we're even going to compare these two laptops versus the competition. We've got about 6 other 18-inch laptops that we'll be comparing these two briefly here at the start. So I'm excited. I'd invite you to please like the live stream, hit subscribe if you're interested in gaming laptop tech reviews and other gaming reviews. Let's go ahead and get into it right now. This is going to be awesome. Okay, so starting with the gaming laptop list, if you're after a high-end gaming laptop or even a budget one, you want to get the best deal, there's a top deal section over here on my laptop list. And of course, there are also going to be links in the video description down below if you decide to buy the Titan or the Scar 18 or any of the other laptops that we talk about today. And if you do use those links, it does help support me as a content creator. But my goal is not to sell you a laptop. My goal is to give you an honest review of the laptops. And then from there, you can make your decision that will hopefully bring you the laptop that you can love and enjoy for many years to come. Okay, so here is the top 10 deals right now. Lock 15, Nitro 5, Zephyrus G16. Wow, that's a pretty nice little deal. That's almost $400 off. The Aorus 7, Legion Slim 5. This is the really portable OLED display version. And then we got the more powerful RTX 4080s. We got 3 of them. The Aorus 17H, the Acer Predator Helios 16, the Legion Pro 7i. So if you click the expansion button here on any of these, it'll come up with images, benchmarks, and a little bit of information about the laptop, as well as links on where to buy. And like I said, if you use the links, it'll help support me as a content creator. So thank you very much. Okay, so what laptops are we doing today? We're doing the Scar 18. This is costs $38.99. So it's not a cheap laptop. It's one of the more expensive RTX 4090s, but not the most expensive. Like the more expensive ones are over $4,000, closer to $4,500 to $5,400, as we'll see with the Titan 18HX. An i9-14900HX will be standard in all of these high-end RTX 4090 gaming laptops with a 24-core 32-thread i9, and pretty much none of these have a Ryzen chip. Very few have Ryzen chips this year. Which is interesting. The obvious pros and cons we're going to get into and do a detailed feature spec comparison, but I love the RGB lighting on the Scar 18. For its size, it's fairly lightweight, 6.83 pounds, as claimed by Asus. We'll be measuring it today with a scale. We've got over 30,000 in Cinebench R23. And then about 22,000 for the Time Spy score. The MSI Titan 18HX, which is the other guy we have here on the left. So that was the Scar 18. This is the Titan. The Titan 18HX, i9-14900HX, RTX 4090, 128 gigs of DDR5, 5600 RAM, but it doesn't actually run at 5600. Realistically, I think it's 3600 is what it actually runs at. We'll be comparing RAM speed tests today. 4 terabyte SSD, and that's with two terabyte SSDs in RAID 0. UHD 120 Hz mini LED with over 1000 nits brightness, but we'll see what we test with the Spider 5 Elite today. We do have the Spider 5 Elite. We'll be testing both displays side by side, one after the other. And yeah, so that's the quick overview of the Titan 18HX. It does, I think, weigh a bit more than the Scar 18, according to MSI, which we'll find out today how much they actually weigh. The Blade 18 is my laptop of choice from 2023, primarily because it is a very um, it is a very portable 18-inch laptop. That's probably the number one thing about it. It's very thin, and it only weighs 6.8 pounds, and it's all metal, and it had a great display from last year. The display is even better this year with a mini LED QHD 300 hertz display, claiming up to 1200 nits, which is absolutely insane. RTX 4090 with an i9 14900HX. I got to see this at CES 2024, and I mean, it looked good. There's the other major thing about the Blade 18, Thunderbolt 5 support, which can really help with big like display outputs. If you want to do the 8K by 2K monitor that I reviewed a little over a month ago, that monitor basically requires Thunderbolt 5 if you want to get the full 240 hertz refresh rate out of it. So yeah. Okay, so Blade 18 also can come with a UHD 200 hertz. So only 400 nits on this panel, not mini LED. It's still going to be a good display. Don't get me wrong, it'll still be a great display, but it's not going to be the same level of brightness as the mini LED. The primary advantage, of course, to mini LED is in really bright rooms or in direct sunlight, you'll be able to see the screen much better. In indoor environments, realistically, you're probably only going to run the screen at maybe 60 to 70% brightness because the mini LED can be so insanely bright. Unless you're one of those people that just love being blinded by your screen, which I have some friends that are like that. Now, the top laptop from Lenovo to compare with these two is the Lenovo Legion 9i, which has some nice RGB lighting. It's a very classy. It's more portable than an 18-inch laptop, only 5.7 pounds. Lenovo does not make an 18-inch laptop, so this is just their highest end option that they have. We do have 165 hertz 3.2K mini LED display. So it's a very bright and vibrant mini LED display. It does also undercut the competition quite a bit at $3,700. Yeah, I did review the Legion 9i. I think it's a really nice laptop overall for your money, but the keyboard placement and trackpad is pretty weird, and they did a water cooler pump thing, which was also, I think, not very effective. And it ended up shifting everything around. I still like the laptop a lot, but it's not as good a bang for your buck as the Legion Pro 7i. So if you're after saving some money, the Legion Pro 7i will save you several $100s for essentially the same or a little bit better performance. It's basically the same performance. From Alienware, their top laptop is the Alienware M18R2 with the i9 14900HX, RTX 4090, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, and a full HD 480 hertz. Or you can go to, I believe, a QHD 240 hertz or a 4K 120 hertz, I think, on their specs page. Let's just hop over to Dell real quick and just check what display options they currently are offering. Currently a QHD 165 hertz or a full HD 480 hertz. So yeah, and these are not that bright of displays either. I think they're a little over 300 nits for both of these options, which is just not that bright, especially for this high of a price point. The Alienware M18 is on the cheaper side for 18-inch laptops, but it really depends on how you configure it as well. But it can be one of the cheaper, especially if it's on sale. Acer Predator Helios 18, redesigned for 2024, RGB light strip on the back. A little bit different design. I'm seeing if I can get Acer to send me one of these for review. $3,000, definitely undercutting the competition quite a bit. RTX 4090, QHD 240 hertz. I'm not sure if this has a mini LED on it right now or not at this price point, but last year's version did have a mini LED version, so wouldn't be surprised if this was a mini LED. 7.17 pounds. The main downside for the Acer Predator Helios 18 is it is very voluminous. It's very large for its size. For an 18-inch laptop, a 1.14 thick, 12.27 and 15.91. I think it's going to be a little bit larger than these two that we have on hand, but not by much. It's very similar, and it does have a lot of plastic on it, which helps it be lighter at 7.1 pounds. And that's another advantage to the Scar 18. 6.83 pounds is achieved through a lot of plastic on the body, but it is pretty high quality plastic in my opinion, and it looks kind of cool because it's also translucent, so you can see the motherboard on the inside. But for premium feel, I think the Titan 18HX definitely is quite a bit more premium feeling with the. We'll go over this. I guess we're getting into it right now, but yeah, definitely a lot more metal, and you got the whole glass front of the laptop here with a haptic touchpad. It really adds to the premiumness, as well as a mechanical Cherry MX keyboard. Currently, as far as I can tell, among all of these high-end laptops, this is the only mechanical keyboard that's being offered. Oh, Alienware M18 also has a Cherry MX mechanical keyboard, so this one also has a mechanical keyboard. So another advantage, I guess, to the Alienware. The main downside with the Alienware, I think, is the software and driver support can be pretty subpar and can really inhibit your experience as a user, which is currently why I don't typically recommend going the Alienware route until they improve that software implementation. In terms of most premium laptop, we're probably looking at the Titan 18HX or the Blade 18 this year. But in terms of value and high-end features, the Scar 18 is very competitive for its price point. The Legion 9i is very competitive for its price point. And honestly, the Acer Helios 18 seems pretty dang competitive for its price point as well. Let me see if I can just find out if there is a mini LED on this Acer Predator 18. I'm not seeing. Yeah, it says IPS. So maybe they removed the mini LED from the Acer Predator Helios 18. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Let me go ahead and check with chat. Sazu says, keep up the great work. Love your videos. Void IX says, these are crazy. I made it here in live for once. JC, welcome to the live stream. This is the laptop battle of all battles of the year. Yeah, it's definitely one of the ones up there. Reffel says, hey, Gizmo, I have two options. Legion Pro 7i, Gen 8, 2023, 4080, or MSI GE 68, HX 4080. What would be good in terms of long life and good thermals? Well, I would say the Legion Pro 7i is probably going to have a little bit better thermals. It's going to be a little bit thicker. In terms of looks, they're about the same. In terms of build quality, I think they're about the same. You get G-Sync and Advanced Optimus on the Legion Pro 7i. Pricing and spec comparison is pretty similar. You should have Windows Hello, I think, on the GE, where you don't have that on the Pro 7i. And display quality on the GE 68HX is likely to also have better color gamut. So that's another, I guess, pro and con there. But between those two, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. And I think both are potentially good laptops. I've not actually officially reviewed the GE 68HX, but I did the 78HX last year, which is the slightly larger version. Okay. I have not done the Predator 18 mini LED review. I have not. I did the Predator Helios 18 review, but it was only with an RTX 4060 instead of the 4080 or 4090. So it was like a different config, and it came with a lower end full HD plus display. So, but I have reviewed all of the laptops that we're talking about today for the 2023 versions and some of them for 2024, but I got hands-on with all of them at CES. So I have at least touched them all, held them all, used them a little bit, you know, usually for like 5-10 minutes, depends on the laptop. And of course, the Scar 18 and Titan 18HX, I've spent extended times testing, gaming, and playing and using. So anyway, okay, so we're on to the next. It's weigh-in time. Which of these laptops are going to weigh more? According to this manufacturers, the Titan 18HX should weigh about 1.2 pounds more or 1.1 pounds more, which is pretty significant. So here is the scale, and it's going to be kind of hard to see it. I'm going to need to get a new scale that has a front display, because these laptops cover up a large portion of the scale, which can be problematic. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this set up. We're just going to weigh the laptops themselves. Okay, so we're getting it zeroed out. All right, and we're in pounds. And now we've got to see if I can see the weight that we got here. Okay, let me tilt this forward so we can scoot the laptop back another little bit. 6.82 pounds. 6.824 pounds is the weight. I'll try to get it closer. You can see it, maybe. 6.821. Okay, so that's the Scar, 6.821. And let's go ahead and see what we get for the Titan. $7.936. 7.936. So yeah, 1.1 pounds approximately heavier for the Titan. So I would say the Scar 18 definitely wins because you're noticeably lighter. All right. Let's do this. It's difficult to fit three 18-inch laptops on one little table. Like, this table is not very large. Honestly, if I could fit a bigger table in this room, I think I would. Because this is quite the endeavor. Like, they fit side by side wider than this table is wide. So I have to have the Blade 18 be like basically behind the other two so that I can get these two to be side by side. All right, so first we have the weight. Scar 18 wins 1.1 pounds lighter. Okay, display test is next. So Scar 18, in my initial review, I was not able to do this display test because the Spider 5 Elite was lost in my luggage, but I got it now, so we are good to try to do our display test. So let's go ahead and put this right here. All right, so it's very important to know and understand how the display works with the Scar 18. There are several different ways that you can actually use the display. And this is this button right here. So multi-zone balance will basically try to make your overall image have brights in the bright areas, darks in the darker areas, more contrasty. Multi-zone strong will accentuate that contrast and make the brights extra bright and the darks extra dark. And one zone backlight mode will make it as evenly backlit for the brights and darks as possible. At least that's the way I would describe it. And I personally prefer the one zone backlight mode because it is, I think, the strongest visually. Like it looks just punchier to me. So I'll switch between those three modes one more time. You can kind of see the logos here. All right, so we're in one zone backlight mode, multi-zone backlight mode, multi-zone strong, and one zone backlight mode. Now, it will look drastically different with multi-zone strong when you have a bright white image taking up a large portion of the view. So multi-zone strong, notice how bright the whites are. It's extremely vivid. One zone backlight evens everything out between the darks and lights. Multi-zone balance, again, balances it somewhat, but like to me, the dark areas look just too dark now. Like it's hard to see the dark areas. Multi-zone strong brightens, especially the bright areas. And then look at this window as I change it to single zone. Boom, this text comes into focus. It's easier to see. I think for movies, doing multi-zone strong may be the best, but for general use, especially any kind of documents or web browsing, I think one zone backlight mode is just the best out of the three modes. But it does drastically change how the images look on the Scar 18. And I really like that Asus allows this. Now, Asus has 2,048 local dimming zones on the Scar 18. That is two times more dimming zones than the Titan 18HX. And that is important because of what's called bloom. Now, we'll do a little bloom test on both of these, and you'll be able to see what bloom looks like on both of these. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. We'll do, what should we do? I think for our color gamut test, one zone backlight mode is the way we'll do it. But know that these results may vary a little bit. If you go into multi-zone strong, for example, and do the Spider 5 Elite test, you may get brighter brightnesses, I think, with the multi-zone strong. Though it's hard to say for sure. Okay, so brightness and I mean, we could test all three. Let's test all three, and we can do it all in one test. I know how to do it. Okay, so first up, we're going to do our color gamut test, and this will be just on the single zone option. Okay, checking chat. Okay, let's see here. I think Gigabyte, let's see here. Someone was asking about, can you also say in kg? Okay, good question. Can someone in chat translate those weights? 7.9 and 6.8? Alex says, is he really live? Yes, I am live. I just wasn't looking at chat because I was in the middle of discussing stuff. Okay, so we're going to start our brightness test next. And so we're going to do 0 brightness as our single zone. All right. All right, and now we're going to switch to multi-zone balance mode for our 25% measurement. And then we'll do multi-zone strong for the last one. Okay, and now we'll do multi-zone strong. Definitely looks like a brighter image there. So 0% was single zone. 25% is going to be the measurement will be for multi-zone balance, and then the 50, 75, and 100% will be the multi-zone strong. So it won't actually be different in brightness, it'll be different modes that we'll be testing there. Okay. Apple give their iPad Pros 10,000 mini LED zones and still no one reached them for some reason. Interesting. I would almost guarantee you that iPad though has worse response rate. Okay. So here we are. I'll tilt the screen forward for you. Okay, so keep in mind this Spider 5 Elite typically underestimates by about 7% on the color gamut spectrum. So I usually add 7% and I do that across everything. It's just the way it is, it lines up. 100% sRGB, 90% of Adobe RGB, so only 97% Adobe RGB. That's still really good. 95% of the P3 color gamut, so above the P3 color gamut. And if you want to see the color spaces, there's the color spaces. So brightness in single zone, 527 nits bright, which is still good. Don't get me wrong. Well, contrast is not as good in single zone. It's only 1100. Very interesting how different the contrast is. Wow. All right. So multi-zone balance, 565 nits, so a little bit brighter in multi-zone balance, but then multi-zone strong, 934 nits was the highest measure out of the three. But let's just say 932 is where we're at for brightness. That's extremely bright. Contrast ratio was highest in multi-zone balance though, which is interesting. Very interesting. Also, contrast did not line up very well for multi-zone strong. It had quite a bit of variance. I wonder if it's related to like their algorithm or something with which ones they push higher. But overall, this is extremely bright. 930 nits is insane. It's incredibly bright for it just like it melts your face off pretty much. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I like multi-zone or single zone, because it doesn't melt your face off as much and you get more like, I don't know, like you can see the text, right? Multi-zone balanced, multi-zone strong, one zone, like all the text just fills in much better with one zone backlight mode. But you do lose contrast ratio, which is that's interesting. That's so interesting. I still like one zone backlight the most, but I like having the flexibility to do, different. Okay, so we're gonna unplug the Spider 5 Elite. We're gonna move over to the Titan, and we're gonna do the same test. Now, the Titan has something that can really impact the color gamut, and that is their MSI True Color app, okay? And right now we have HDR on, and so you actually can't use the True Color app. So if you want to use these different color profiles, such as gamer, anti-blue sRGB, Adobe, and P3, you actually have to turn HDR off. But we'll go ahead and do our test with the HDR enabled. And let's just do a quick check. Was HDR enabled in Windows on the Scar 18? So right here, you can see on the Scar 18, HDR was disabled. I guess we can disable HDR if we want to do it. A fair is fair for the Titan. All right, we'll go ahead and disable HDR. Whoa, it makes the Titan display look way different. Let's see, is the brightness up all the way? Okay, now brightness is up all the way. Wow, that is so bright. All right, turning HDR on. Still very, very bright. I wonder which one provides more brightness. I'm guessing with HDR enabled, it feels brighter to me. Whew, yeah, it definitely feels like, look at my face when this thing turns on and off. It is like a face light. is just so bright. Okay, so HDR, let's do it on. I think it's the best case scenario. I'm looking to do, you know, best case scenario basically, but we could also do the test part of the way through. And then we could switch it so we could see what the brightness is, just like we did on the Scar 18. So we can see what the brightness is in HDR mode or not HDR mode. But for right now, we have HDR enabled, okay? HDR is enabled to start the test. I want 2K nits to experience the sun from inside my house. It's too true. Industrial Man, can you do a coil whine test? I heard this was also a problem before they fixed it. Yeah, I haven't heard coil whine on the Scar 18 unit that I had before, and I don't think I've heard any coil whine on this new unit. This is actually a different unit because in the middle of my testing using the laptop, part of the display went out. So Asus sent me a new one for me to do a test with. Continue testing. So 0% brightness will have HDR enabled. Man, it is such a bright image that it kind of blacks out the display a little bit. You can't see the Spider 5 Elite unless I change the exposure down, up. Jeez. Okay, well that's with one stop down. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll turn HDR off now. And so 0% was with HDR enabled. Now HDR is off, and the rest of the tests will be with HDR off. Isn't coil whine found mostly in Asus products? So in 2023, this is something I've talked with the Asus product manager with pretty extensively. And basically, Asus did not have as strict of quality control checking at the very launch. And so all of the review units they sent out, all the initial units they sold, they had, I would say at least half of their production, a lot of them had coil whine, which is basically like a little tick, 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 tick type of sound from vibrations in the coils of like the VRMs. And for me, coil whine is primarily only noticeable when you don't have the fans running and you've got a fairly high load suddenly hitting the CPU or GPU. So like, let's say you're launching a game and the fans haven't spun up yet, you might hear a little coil whine as things load in. And there's a lot of electricity going through it before the fans spin up. As soon as the fans get going, I usually don't hear it anymore. So, all right, so set brightness to 100. We're ready to go. We're not doing the brightness difference. So only 0 is the one with the HDR. Okay, so as far as coil whine goes, what Asus did is they completely changed their quality checking protocol. They added a quiet room away from, so like when they were doing their quality checks before, they were in like a noisy factory type environment and they couldn't hear the coil whine happening to the units. So they incorporated a quiet room where all the sound is blocked off, and then they have a decibel meter, and they do a sound check for any coil whine for every laptop that they sell now. So 2024 should have no coil whine, in theory, the 2024 units, as long as their new protocol is good. But that's what they did. That's what the Asus marketing. That's what the Asus product marketing guy, Sasha, said. Okay, here we are. So, very interesting. So one thing that's important to know about the color gamut, let me see if I can get this to appear a little bit better. It's hard because of the exposure with the camera gets all out of whack with these super bright displays. All right, so we tested the color gamut when HDR was enabled, and so we only had 87% of the P3 color gamut, 83% of Adobe, 100% of sRGB. But because we had HDR is off, we should be able to, maybe we need to restart this app. Basically, because HDR was enabled, we weren't able to use the True Color profiler to change the color gamut target. So that's one downside, I guess, of using HDR with the MSI, is that it's going to limit your color gamut profile of the display. And so I guarantee you we could get 100% of the P3 color gamut if we used the right color profile with MSI True Color, or at least, I mean, I pretty much guarantee. I mean, can I guarantee you? I don't know why this is not responding. Maybe I need to go in here and end task on MSI True Color. Let's open it again and see if it will let me change it. Okay, so right now I have it set to P3 color gamut priority, which shifts the color spectrum of the display differently. We couldn't do this when we have HDR enabled. So I'd like to retest this color gamut here in a moment just to verify. Now for brightness, 886 nits brightness is phenomenal. And that's with HDR enabled. With HDR disabled, 733. Contrast ratio was absolutely nuts. 886,000 with HDR, 733,000 without. So contrast ratio being better on the Titan versus the Scar, but brightness and color gamut being better on the Scar. But we're going to test the color gamut again and verify our results. So let's go ahead and do a color gamut test once more. So MSI True Color is now set to P3 color gamut. We'll start the test. Okay. JC says good on Asus. Yeah, as far as I can tell, I mean, really time will tell if they fix the coil whine issues, but I believe for their 2024 products, they should have fixed it. It sounds like. That's what it sounds like. What are my thoughts on the new Blade 18? Dennis, I went over the Blade 18 in a bit more detail at the beginning of the live stream when I did the comparison versus the other 18-inch laptops. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's really, really good. And some nice improvements over 2023, but it's not enough for me to warrant switching over. Okay, so this is with the color gamut set to P3. It still was not 100% of the P3 color gamut. It's, if you adjust 7% for the Spider 5 Elite underestimating, it's 97% of the P3 color gamut. But it's so close. It is very close. 85% of Adobe RGB. It makes you wonder, like, if you were to switch between these different ones, which one would give you the best color profile for as far as color gamut goes. I'm guessing P3 Gamer looks pretty colorful. Adobe RGB, of course, would add a little more of the Adobe spectrum. But, yeah. As far as professional work goes, it's nice to be able to switch between these color spaces in case you're wanting to target a specific type of color for your final product. So that's pretty cool, I think, but not everyone's going to need to necessarily do that. Still, so 100% of sRGB, 92% of Adobe, and 97% of P3. We didn't do the brightness test, but it was 880. So overall, I would say overall in terms of display in terms of brightness, the Scar 18 wins. In terms of color gamut, the Scar 18 barely wins. Now, in terms of other display specs, it's very important to note that we have let me go over to the display specs one more time for you. We have a 240 hertz QHD plus, so that means 2560 by 1600 resolution display, and it's 240 hertz. On the Titan, we only have 120 hertz, but it's higher resolution, UHD plus. And so that means you're getting I think it's 3840 by 2400 resolution. It's massively higher resolution, more than 2 times more resolution than the QHD plus. So it's a big upgrade in terms of resolution, but on an 18-inch laptop, it's kind of hard to see the display resolution difference, especially if you use upscaling on both to optimize frame rates, because the fine, tight details on both still are going to look really good. And you might actually just, to get the same frame rate, you might just go down to balanced or performance upscaling instead of quality upscaling at QHD to hit the same frame rate. So it's a interesting conundrum, if you will, of these two laptops, of which display is going to be better for you. I think that both of these laptop displays are fantastic in their own way. I personally prefer the 240 hertz QHD of the Scar 18, not only because it's brighter, it's got the 3 different types of backlight modes, which I like. And then it also has a slightly higher color gamut. And it's higher refresh rate. And it's lower resolution, so higher frame rates for games. If I was a designer, graphic designer, Photoshop, video editor, I think the Titan might have an advantage in the sense that you have those different color spaces you can work in, as well as the higher resolution will let you see the details of your subjects a little bit better. So in terms of display quality, so freaking close. I mean, they're not much different. I would say Scar 18 edges out for me, but for other users, I think the Titan might take the advantage, take the lead. So I kind of want to call this a tie in terms of display quality. But yeah, let's go ahead and try just setting these to do the same image for a couple of things side by side so you can get an idea of the raw brightness of everything as well. All right, so we're going to set the brightness up to maximum on both. Make sure they're both set to max brightness. And I'll give you my impressions as well, okay? So here we are. We're side by side. Right here, I think the Titan looks brighter. In this scenario, the Titan looks noticeably brighter to my eyes. I don't know why that is, but this is like an all-white display pretty much. If we go to our backgrounds where it's a little bit more mixed, things are looking really good on both. It would be really hard to tell which one was a brighter display in this scenario. Let's go to our background selector and let's just go to our generic white background. I'm gonna kind of tilt the tilt the laptops to be facing the camera, centered a little bit better. I mean, I'd say the Titan again looks just a little bit brighter. Wow, it's so overblown. Let's go ahead and go down and stop the brightness down a little bit. Okay. So right here you can see, again, I think the Titan is providing a little bit more contrast. But that's also where inside of Armory Crate, it might make a big difference which zone you're in or which mode you're in. So let's do multi-zone strong. All right, and now I would say the Scar 18 is brighter. just changing that mode. In single zone, I would say the Titan is a little brighter. Multi-zone strong. Scar 18 becomes brighter. So it depends on how you're going to run the display. But either of these displays, I think, will be too bright for the human eye under typical circumstances. So let's go back and we'll change it to this one. Let's see if we can get these laptops on the same image. Huh. Usually there's a, I don't know. I guess we'll go to this image. Usually it's the same set of images. Maybe this one. There we go. Okay, this is the one I was looking for. All right. So for this, we'll do multi-zone strong for the side-by-side. They look incredibly similar. Let's move on to the next image. Again, incredibly similar in terms of color brightness and everything. Let's go to, I'll put these close and I'll zoom in. I don't know. In terms of display quality, brightness, all of that, I'd say they're just so close. It's hard to be like, yeah, this one's way better than the other one. I think it's more about whether the refresh rate and resolution fits you better, more than anything else, because they're both so good. Okay, let's do a, we'll do a bloom test. And then we can move on to our next segment. Just pulling up the, I'm going to do a all black image. Okay, so here we go. So they both are running at max brightness right now. We have they're all black image. And for this, I'm going to turn the lights off behind us here. At least. So there's less reflection here. There we go. Okay, so can you see the bloom and how much larger it is on the Titan? It's a solid, like, I don't know, I'd say index finger width probably, versus the bloom with the double amount of local dimming zones here on the Scar is small. It's just a little bit bigger than the cursor. So in terms of bloom, I would say that I'm trying to adjust the camera brightness here. I don't know if that'll make it easier or harder to see this. But yeah, in terms of my visuals to my own eye, I would say the Titan definitely has more bloom, but it's not terrible on either one. Is the way I would that's the way I would describe it. Under typical usage scenarios, I think you might have a harder time detecting it. So that's an all black image right there on the Titan. See if I can get it to focus. That's an all black image. You can see there's no backlight bleed on either of these displays. Completely perfect blacks on both. It's awesome to see. It's just the bloom where there's bright objects on dark backgrounds. It's going to be a huge difference with the Scar 18. So yeah, okay. Okay. Brett Allen says, what did I miss? What's up, Paul? We're just, so far we've done the top two things. All right, so for display test, I mean, I wanted to do, display is very important, so I wanted to say, Scar 18 for me, but tie. I'm gonna call it a tie, but if it was me, I would choose the Scar 18. Let's do build quality flex test next. All right. Britt Allen, I did change the mode of the Scar several times, so just rewind the live stream if you want to check that out. All right, build quality flex test. Let's move on. All right, so this is going to be tricky. And to not blow out the camera display, I'm going to dim these displays down to 20% or so brightness. All right, beautiful. And we'll have to scoot these over a little bit to have a fair side-by-side flex test. Okay, so we'll start right here where they're together. All right, so flex test. No flex on either one. Moving further away. Just a little bit of flex, I would say, on the Scar by the trackpad. It's not bad. No flex on the Titan, though. This thing is feeling super solid. All right, let's go ahead and just do the rest of the Titan. And then I will do super solid, super solid, super solid. Everything is super solid. I mean, just a tiny bit of flex here. It's so minor. But super solid, super solid, super solid. This is metal. This whole front is glass. So it's a glass with one whole sheet of glass with a haptic feedback. And this is there's no ridge or anything around this. I would kind of prefer if they added some kind of little etching or something to just tell your finger, oh, you went off the trackpad, because sometimes you're scrolling and you scroll off of it, you know. All right, let's do the keyboard. So going over the WASD keys, almost no flex, just a tiny bit of flex. Overall, extremely rigid. I mean, in terms of rigidity, that's just absolutely phenomenal. Let's do the hinge. Well, let's do the flex test for the Scar. Let's keep them. We'll do one and then the other, and then we'll do the hinge next. Okay, so starting on the left. No flex, no flex. Just a tiny bit of flex in front of the touchpad, but no flex, no flex, no flex. Tiny bit of flex, a little bit more flex here by the space bar. Definitely some decent flex here. Decent flex there. Again, no flex. You know, where you put your wrist rests, almost no flex. Some flex here along the left side. No flex, no flex, a little bit of flex, no flex, a little bit of flex in the corner sides, going over the keyboard, definitely some flex over the keyboard, but overall pretty minimal. In terms of rigidity, Titan 18, definitely noticeably more rigid. Let's go ahead and do our hinge test next. So we're gonna go ahead and just do a one finger opening with the Titan, and then with the Scar. So, all right. So, can we do a one finger open? We can do a one finger open. Can we do a one finger open with the Scar? One finger open, no problem. All right. Let's see how rigid everything is. The Max fans turned on this Titan for some reason. All right, so there is some wobble when you move the display. And I would say generally the display is pretty easy to move. And I would say the hinge quality is good, but I would prefer firmer hinges if possible, especially for a laptop this big. All right, let's do the let's do the Scar. The hinge quality, I mean, definitely still some wobble. I'd say the hinge quality is still quite good. And I would say it's a little bit stronger, a little harder to move the Scar 18 display, which I like that. I like it to be really firm. You don't feel like it's going to break at all. And I actually do prefer this hinge style design more than the Titan's hinge style design. Let's see if I can get some light in front. So with these style hinges, I just feel like there's a more of a likelihood to have something break between this hinge and the way the display is held compared to this style hinge with the Scar, where the hinge goes down and in, and the hinge is located almost entirely inside of the bottom here of the chassis. So I prefer that. And I think the Scar 18 hinges are likely to last longer as a result. I mean, I don't anticipate the hinges on either of these to go out under typical usage, because most of the people buying this kind of laptop, they're not going to be moving the laptop every single day. They'll more likely move it every now and then. So for flex test, Titan 18 wins. For hinge quality, Scar 18 wins. I'd say we're going to call it a tie for build quality flex test. All right, design comparison. Let me check. For the bloom test, change the mode. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Britt, that would have been a good idea, Britt. I mean, I can do that real quick. It'll just take a second. So here is the Titan. All right, we're gonna go back to max brightness real quick. We're on multi-zone strong. Very little bloom. We'll go to one zone backlight. Still very little bloom. Multi-zone balanced. Still very little bloom. So that's good. I mean, I don't think that it's going to affect zone. The zone type isn't going to affect the bloom very much on the Scar 18. Okay, so next is a design comparison. Poll in chat for design. Yeah, let's go ahead and chat. Which one do you like more, the Titan or the Scar 18? Let's do a quick overview of it. This will be interesting. So viewers can look to chat to see public opinion. All right. I'll give my opinion, but let's just go over the design in general. To start with, both laptops have a metal top lid with a light up logo. All right, so both of these laptops have light up logos. This lights up, okay? Overall, I think the Asus design for the logo is a little better though. And there's some nice design motifs on the Asus. You've got this text that says Republic of Gamers on it with a little stripe going down. And let's go to the side-by-side on the rear. So, as you can see side by side on the rear, we have no RGB implementation on the back. This is the RGB from the... So there you can see the RGB. There's no RGB implementation on the Titan. It's just gray silver with blue and black. And then if we turn on the RGB from the Scar, you can see we've got this nice RGB bar that goes down the entire length of the Scar. It looks really good, I think. And adds a nice gamery classiness to it. But you can turn it off and it looks just like a business laptop. So you have the flexibility to go either way with the Scar 18, I think. Whereas when you have no RGB and you still have color on the Titan, you still come across as a bit gamery with the Titan. All right. Now, in terms of, let's go to the front. Let's go front facing. The Titan wins some style points because of the RGB light up trackpad. This is a 5-zone RGB trackpad. And I think it looks really good. This trackpad, it looks flashing right now, but that's not how it actually is to the human eye. That's how it looks to the human eye. I changed the refresh rate of the trackpad so that it refreshes at the shutter speed of the camera refreshes at the same speed as the trackpad now. But you can see it like slides smoothly between different colors. You can customize this color to be anything you want. And I really like that. It's 5 zones vertically, so you can shift the colors down in a smooth spectrum. The keyboard is per key RGB backlit keyboard, and it's Cherry MX mechanical switches. Check out how they sound. Very mechanical sounding. Surprise, surprise, right? The thing about the Scar 18 that I love is it also has per key RGB backlighting on the keys, but it also has this amazing ribbon light bar that goes across the front. And especially in darker room environments, this RGB light bar is incredibly noticeable and it looks just wicked cool. And yet, if you're in a business environment, you can just turn it off and it looks like a normal laptop again. So really cool options for a Scar 18 user if you like RGB. I think from an RGB perspective, the Scar 18 definitely wins. From a business flexibility design standpoint, the Scar 18 wins because it doesn't have, it can look very businessy even when the lights are off. In terms of design quality, that's where I think the Titan wins because we have plastic. This is a high quality plastic base keyboard deck with high quality plastic bottom. All right, so plastic bottom, plastic keyboard deck, metal top lid. But with the Titan, we have metal keyboard deck with glass for our front half of the keyboard deck. And then on the bottom, we have plastic. So it's a nice mix of plastic and metal to where the things the user touches are metal and glass. And that gives the actual user experience, I think, a little bit more premium feel to it than the Scar. So, and then of course, Windows Hello is really nice. Okay. So for design, Scar 18 for RGB, Titan for premium. That's the way I'm going to describe it. Scar 18 wins the RGB battle. If it was between, I mean, I'd be happy with either one, but if I had to carry one of these, I'd probably go Scar because I love RGB. That's what I would say. I see. It's interesting. I'm seeing Scar 18. I'm seeing GT77 better. Yeah, of course, Brett says Titan GT77 is better. LOL. Oh, good call, TCam. So another downside for the Scar is the actual backlight of the keys is not as high quality. Like the F1 through 12 keys, for example, those letters up here are not lit up. Let me get a little closer so you can see it a little better. See that? The F6 right there, not lit up, whereas the little emblem is. So it might be a little harder to see those keys at night. And then in addition, the actual brightness of the keys themselves are not as bright as, say, on the Titan. They'll have brighter keyboard backlight. And the secondary things here are lit up. F11, F1 through 12 are lit up in the Titan. So there we go. That's as bright as it gets right there. I would say that both of them are noticeably and usable for backlight, except for the F1 through 12s on the Scar. Okay, so for software comparison, let's get into the software comparison next. Did I get the new 2024 Blade 18? Not yet. RGB gives more FPS. Yes, absolutely. It's like a 10% FPS boost, guaranteed. Scar 18 has a weird trackpad because you can't click it. I would disagree. It feels pretty good. I didn't really do keyboard and trackpad as an option in here, but we really should add keyboard touchpad. And I mean, I would say that the Titan wins. The keyboard, because it's got mechanical keys, and I think the keyboard feels a little better, and the backlight is a little bit better, a little deeper travel, and the haptic touchpad works really well now. So I would say from a touchpad perspective, they're very close, but I'd give the edge to the Titan. All right. Okay. Software comparison. Let's get into the software comparison. All right. So let's show the Titan software first. All right. So this is MSI Center. This is the software you'll use to control the laptop primarily. And let me rotate my camera a little so I can't reach it. There we go. Okay. Beautiful. All right, so this is the MSI Center. You have your different fan profiles right here, extreme performance, and there's a little gear button. You can go in here and overclock your GPU. You can also do your fan speed to auto, cooler boost, which will be max fans, or advanced, you can set your own custom fan profile curve for fan 1 and fan 2. We'll be doing cooler boost when we do the test a little bit later here, but overall, I think the fan profiles in the software work fine, and there's no issues here. You also have a max fan quick button on the keyboard right here with FN plus the up arrow. Will spin up the fans to max speed instantly for you if you're wanting max fans. And then for switching your graphics on the fly, you'll need to go to MS Hybrid Graphics mode because the Titan does not have G-Sync or Advanced Optimus. So if you need G-Sync or Advanced Optimus, you have to go to the Scar 18. Now, hybrid mode still lets you switch between the dedicated graphics and the onboard integrated graphics if you want to. There's also an integrated graphics only mode for maximizing your battery life, which will completely disable the NVIDIA GPU. Overall, I think that G-Sync is helpful, and I wish MSI had included it with this laptop. That's, it can reduce screen tearing, especially in more demanding games with lower frame rates, especially if they're faster paced. There is an MSI AI engine, which will basically try to optimize your GPU and CPU as much as possible. There's a few other software options in here. There's live update. There is a hardware monitoring section. I don't think this is really that useful to me. Under features, there is general settings, which you can use to enable and disable a crosshair, as well as display overdrive, which is going to make your response rate just a little bit faster. Enable, disable HDR, display panel saver, which will switch you from 60 Hertz to 120 Hertz when you're in battery mode. And then adding the crosshair is pretty cool. You can enable and disable this crosshair, and you can do that also with just a hotkey press on the keyboard here, the down arrow, FN plus down arrow. You can turn it off and on. And I think that's pretty sweet. I think that's a nice little feature for the Titan that most other laptops don't have. MSI has been including it, and I am a kind of a user that would definitely use that if I can. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know about MSI's stuff in here. If you're going to update the BIOS with the Titan, you got to do it manually. Go to their website and download it onto a USB key, reset your BIOS to default settings, and then you run the BIOS update. So it's a fairly involved process to update the BIOS compared to the SCAR 18 BIOS update, which is done through Windows Update and through the My Asus app. So the SCAR 18, in terms of BIOS updates, are usually pretty seamless. It updated on its own when I got it, downloaded it through Windows Update. It just restarted, installed, I pressed OK, and it reinstalled the BIOS, and there's no problem. Generally speaking, the probably number one reason why you might fail your BIOS update is if you have a strong undervolt through your BIOS settings. So generally, I'd recommend resetting your BIOS to default settings if you can before updating it, but it's up to you. Okay. Are you having any issues with MSI hybrid mode? I have not tried testing in that too much. Just initially before I got it, before I did my official benchmarking with it, it was in that mode by default. Yeah, it was working fine for me when I used it. I didn't notice any problems for the time that it was in there. What is the flashing light on the SCAR? So these are status lights down here. Let's see, what are those indicating? That is that your mic? Battery charged, I believe. That looks like, is it on? And I think this is probably hard drive activity, if I were to guess, but I'm not sure. There's are three status lights. Yeah, and some people might find them annoying. All right, just making that clear. Okay, so let's talk Asus software. We have G-Sync support here. We have Advanced Optimus for quick GPU switching on the fly. The only time you're going to want to, or only time you'll have to do GPU switching that takes a restart is if you want to go into dedicated GPU mode, which disables the integrated graphics, or standard, which is where Advanced Optimus is enabled. And once you're in standard mode, you can go into these other two modes. optimize and eco, that allows you to disable the dedicated GPU for better battery life. Yeah, so Armory Crate is the primary application for Asus. And this is the application that lets you control the fan profiles right here for your performance on the SCAR 18. You've got silent, performance, turbo, and manual. In manual mode, you have your CPU power limits that you can set. I like that. It's a nice advantage over the MSI. In the GPU, you can set a overclock, as well as, of course, you've got your fan profile curves right here for the CPU and the GPU. So if you want them to ramp up or down at specific intervals based on temperature, you can do that. You can also enable or disable dynamic boost right here. There's also a third system fan that you can control with another fan profile curve. Very cool overall manual mode that you can set and save multiple manuals for like a quiet, cooler running mode, or like a ultra high overclock mode, or CPU prioritized mode with less dynamic boost on the NVIDIA GPU. And you can quick switch between these different modes at the top here and create new ones, new manual modes with this little button right here. Now, in order to apply the manual mode, you need to click the little checkbox and that'll activate it. Other options to consider is, like I said, you have GPU mode. This is dedicated, and ultimate mode is basically dedicated GPU only. I don't think you really need this with Advanced Optimus. I don't really recommend it, but we test our laptops. I always test the laptops in ultimate mode anyway. Standard mode is the way I would typically run the laptop, and I would just choose whether I want the NVIDIA or integrated GPU to be active. For system config, we have the Windows key disabled, touchpad disabled, boot up sound disabled, panel overdrive, panel power saver, and one zone, single zone, and multi-zone backlight modes. And then we also have we have our lighting control. Let's see here, lighting control. There it is. Okay, so under here, under Aura Sync, you go to Aura Effects, and here you can choose whether you want the lights to sync to music, to have different, to do a color cycle, strobing, breathing, static. I think the two primary modes you're going to be most interested in is in Rainbow, which looks pretty sick, maybe music mode, but then also static mode, because you can go static and make all the lights just go to a white color. Yeah. Interesting. So right now it's actually not controlling the laptop. There is also an update center in here. You can update stuff directly through Armory Crate. Looks like there's a couple updates to apply, but we don't have time to add those today. I don't think any of those will be crucial for updates. It's interesting that the colors are not updating. Inside of the Aura. Maybe we need to add the Aura creator, or maybe we need to update. Maybe that's one of the updates we need to apply. The Aura creator is a way to do more advanced lighting control. And there's, as you can see, there's quite a bit of options here. Armory Crate has a new version available to it. We can update that. I would like to update Armory Crate itself. While that's updating, let's go to SteelSeries GG on the Titan and show you how you can control the lighting on the Titan. So under SteelSeries GG, the app, you can see that this is where you'll actually pick your RGB lighting and customization. So you could switch between different modes inside of here. There is configuration. So under Prism is where I changed the touchpad lighting, for example. So if you want to change the touchpad lighting, you highlight the touchpad, and then you can do clown, for example. Now we're in clown mode with the touchpad, and that is like a disco in your face. So I don't think I'd really recommend it, but it's an option. I'll back this out a little bit so you can kind of see me change it as we go. So you highlight, again, if you want to change something, use the mouse to highlight those zones. So there's Comet, Color Fusion, Chasing Ghosts. There's literally a disco mode, which is kind of crazy. Reactive Glow, Rainbow. I'm pretty sure I did Vapor Dreams. Vapor Dreams is what I had it set to. There is, of course, also the keyboard backlighting, which you can change between different modes. And I think Prism looks really good. I think Vapor Dreams looks really good. I think Rainbow looks pretty good. There's a lot of nice ones. Aqua looks pretty good too. I actually like a lot of these that they have in here. And then you can also change the color of your MSI logo on the back to be whatever you want it to be. Let's see if Armory Crate is now working for our color control, because it was not letting me control. The laptop. Let's see here. Rainbow mode, breathing. Yeah, so it's not actually changing the mode right now. For some reason, I'm not sure the reason why. Armory Crate being naughty. I did not test this before. I have got this working before with my other laptops and the other Scar 18, so not sure the reason why it's not working here. I believe we can still use the Aura button. So this button right here, Aura. You press FN plus F4, and you can switch between the different modes for the Scar 18. Color cycle, rainbow, static. The main thing for me with static is I want to change the color to be white instead of red. Because if you wanted to make it more business professional but still have backlighting, I think that's the way to go. So I can still control the colors somewhat, but customizing them right now is for some reason not working. Okay. Last but not least, you'll need to know about my Asus, which is another application to consider. Also, I want to mention Windows Dynamic Lighting. Since we're on lighting, you need to go to press the Windows button, type in DYN, and you can go lighting, change lighting colors and brightness. And then right here, you'll want to disable use dynamic lighting on my devices. If you don't have that disabled, you won't be able to control the lighting through Armory Crate or anything. It'll just look blue. It'll just be blue lighting, okay? All right. Okay, so my Asus. This is a way for you to register your laptop. All right, you don't actually have to log in for this. My Asus, it looks like my Asus needs to update itself. So basically, with my Asus, you can register your warranty, you can extend your warranty and pay for an additional warranty. I think there's only a limited time period after you buy the laptop to do that. And number 3, you can set battery conservation mode. So inside of device settings here, there's a battery care mode. I recommend turning this on. It will prevent your battery from overcharging and staying at 100% all the time. I think it's just smart to keep that enabled. And does MSI have any kind of battery conservation mode? I don't think they do, which I think is a miss from MSI overall. So overall, those are the main things. Oh, and also BIOS updates can come through the My Asus app. If it's not coming through Windows Update for some reason and you want to download the latest BIOS update early before they deploy it through Windows Update, you can download it through My Asus. I think they're usually deployed around the same time though, so not really too much of a point in that. Overall, in terms of usability, both applications for MSI and Asus are very usable and good, but I gotta edge it out to Armoury Crate. Armoury Crate with Asus, BIOS updates are better, and the custom mode in particular, allowing you to have CPU power limit control on the fly, is very powerful for the Armoury Crate application. And generally, Armoury Crate works pretty well. The only issue today is a lighting control, but not sure why right now. Okay. MSI has it in MSI Center, but I think you have to download it and even set memory. Okay. So MSI Center, apparently you can set. Apparently there's some place in the MSI Center to be able to change your max charge. I don't know where that is though. I've never seen that in here. I don't think that, as far as I can remember. I'm looking around. I'm not seeing anything. I suppose one other application for MSI to keep in mind is the MSI True Color. So you can change between different color profiles or different color spaces, I guess you call it. So Adobe, sRGB, Gamer, P3, Office. This allows you to have some flexibility for how the content is displayed on your system. Okay, in terms of which one wins for software, I think Asus wins because of Armoury Crate, G-Sync support, Advanced Optimus, which is kind of a hardware thing, CPU power limits. It's MSI is not bad on all those fronts, except for maybe G-Sync, Advanced Optimus, but otherwise very, very similar. Time to move on to our speaker test. So speakers, let's see which one has better speakers. I actually am very curious. I don't know. From memory, they seemed pretty close in terms of overall speaker quality. So let's see which one is the better speakers. All right, so we're gonna need to scoot this back. Whew. This is hard to fit all of these laptops. It really is hard to fit these laptops here. Okay, so I want to make sure both of them have table on both sides. We're going to go to our music folder on both of them. For music control, we have Dolby Access on the SCAR 18. This allows you to have basic EQ controls, music balance. We're just going to go to dynamic for the SCAR. I think it's going to give us our loudest option. For Yeah, for MSI, I don't think they have any music control software. So it's just how it's coordinated out of the box for the Titan, as far as I can tell. Okay. Speaker test. Here we go. Let me make sure the volume's up to max on both. All right. First up is Peter Spacey Roar. We are going to be doing the Titan first. And let's go ahead and do a baseline room sound. Nahimic. Right. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, so there is, for MSI, there's an app called Nahimic. And we do have sound effects enabled for voices, bass, and treble boost. And we're at max volume. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so there is some audio control on both sides as far as speakers. Minor adjustments. They're not going to dramatically change the quality of your speakers, though. All right. Peter Spacey Roar is our first song. Let's do the Titan, and then we'll do the Scar. Okay, so max volume was around 84 decibels. I think at the end it went up to like 85. Baseline room decibels was 41.2. Here goes the Scar 18. Here we are. Yeah, so I would say the Titan wins that song. Let's move on to our next one, Faded Aeon Half-Life. All right, now we're going to do the Scar 18, Faded Aeon Half-Life. The volume was way louder on the Titan. I saw 89 decibels for the volume meter. But I would say the Titan volume was so loud it felt like it was breaking up a little bit. For clarity, I'd say the Scar 18 was a little bit clearer. Okay, Deuce Williams, La La Love You Like, Titan.
I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you, I love you, I love you like la 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 la.
That's good. Let's go to La La Love You Like, Scar.
I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you, I love you, I love you like la 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 la.
I'd say, again, volume is better on the Titan. Clarity, a little bit better on the Scar. What do you think, chat? I think it's very, very close in terms of the balancing between the two. I think I'd give it to the Titan in terms of speakers by a little bit. They mainly because of the increased volume has some real advantages when you're wanting to play external audio. And I'd say the bass was noticeably better also on the Titan. So let's go. I'm going to give it to the Titan, but let me know, chat, what did you think with the speakers test? I use these songs because they are royalty free, so YouTube doesn't demonetize my videos. That's why I use these songs. And they have a nice blend of, I think, audio profile to give a good feel of like a bassy song, a more acoustic song, and a more vocal oriented song. So those are the reasons why I chose the three songs that I did choose. All right, so we're going to be doing a fan speed noise test at max fans next. So first we're going to do the Titan max fan speed test. All right. So we'll put the mic right in front of the Titan and we'll see what we get for our max fan speed. 64.5 is what we'll call it. All right. Max fan speed for the Scar coming up. We got to enable max fans in manual mode here for the Scar. And it'll take a moment for all the for the fans to ramp up to max fan speed. The jet engine's taken off. Wow, that's loud it's very loud. 65 is super loud. 56.3, what we'll call it. So about 9 decibels more for the Titan in terms of max fan speed. Now, that's not necessarily like the best way to measure max fan speed. Or max fan, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. Because what really matters is what is the fan speed when it's done automatically by the system. I think that's what a lot of people will care a lot more about. So let's get into Time Spy, and we'll let the auto fans take over for one and then the other. Okay, we'll do extreme performance with auto fans on the Titan, and we'll do, which is what we have set up right now. Okay, so we'll do the Titan first. We'll see how loud the fans get to by default. Just because they can go to 65 doesn't mean that they actually need to go to 65 on a regular basis, because that's very important to recognize. I thought my Dyson handheld was running for a second. Yeah, that is really loud, huh? So with the Scar, the main thing I would notice with the Scar is that it ramps into the fan noise really smoothly. And that sounds really nice, I think, for most people, but the downside of it is that you might get hot. Things might get a bit spicy as you're waiting for everything to go, you know, to come up. Because like as the fan, before the fans ramp up, maybe the temperatures are spiking, basically, and that's not great. My neighbors will ask to reduce the Titan performance. Probably if you're in like a college classroom or something like that, you literally may end up in a situation where people are like, "Can you make your laptop quieter?" With a laptop like the Titan. Like, I'm not kidding. That could happen. I could see it happening. All right. So Titan is running. We can see that the Titan is targeting 175 watts to the GPU, 60 to 70 watts to the CPU, very high CPU wattage. Very high GPU wattage, GPU 165 there, interesting. Hopefully we can maintain a good GPU around or close to 70 or so, pretty consistently. For 170 plus for our GPU wattage would be ideal. The noise is really ramping up. Let's zoom out for some noise monitoring. From 55 decibels down to 50. So this is the fan profile curve going up and down as the temperatures on the CPU look like they're spiking into the 80s, ramps the fans higher. Yeah, I mean, we're looking around 55, I think, as a pretty consistent fan noise under heavy load for the Titan. Let's move on to the Scar. All right, so keep in mind we are in auto turbo. We're in turbo mode, turbo fan profile mode. So not max fans. Do you recommend the Titan for Adobe After Effects and Blender? Yeah, I mean, it'll work great for those. Obviously, you could use other applications or other laptops that are cheaper for those as well, and they'll still work. But yeah, any of these high-end laptops will be great for those apps. All right, so we're doing 175 watts through the GPU. GPU temps are in the 60s, CPUs are on the 70 mark. 50 watts going through that CPU right now. Let's go ahead and see how loud the fans are currently as it's ramping into this temp range. Right now would be when you would hear coil whine as well. I'm not hearing any from this distance. Let's get a little closer. I'm not hearing any coil whine on this unit. That's good. Well, we're ramped up to, if you look at the temps now, we're up to 70 degrees on the GPU, 75 on the CPU. Less CPU wattage being pushed through the CPU, and that's helping our temps for sure, and helping keep fan noise down lower. These are excellent temps for the amount of fan noise that we're getting, though. Much better than the Titan, I would say. A nice gentle whoosh right around the 50-degree mark. That's great. I'd say for me, that means that the Scar 18 wins auto fan mode for sure by a long shot. A much quieter general operation for the Scar 18. If you just wear headphones though, and you don't care about fan noise, I mean, yeah, then it's not really relevant. I'd say Scar 18 wins that though, by a pretty large margin. Okay, time to get into some performance tests examples. Times by Crystal, 8064, Cinebench R23, and R24. I've done all these tests ahead of time, but we will also do a little bit of CPU testing side by side. We'll start with the CPU testing side by side to see power limit and consistent performance. Are you ready for the jet engines? We're going to be combining both max fans right now to make a super jet engine noise. Let's see how loud they are together. I'm curious. Weird. Like the Titan is quieter now. Ah, it's just because it was not centered. When it's centered, it's just as loud. Yeah, the Titan is a loud one here. Okay. Cinebench R23, let's get into a run on both. Titan sounds like a vacuum. Not nearly as a vacuum would be like 80 decibels probably. A vacuum's way louder, but it's still pretty significant. Okay, so we'll have Titan 18H X versus Scar 18. Shabalagoo. All right, and from now on, I'm also going to be reducing the resolution on the Titan to match the Scar 18 at QHD plus, so that we have parity for application sizes and all the other stuff. And for benchmark performance in games as well, it'll be QHD plus resolution. So, okay, getting HW info 64 opened on both. All right, so we'll do a 10-minute test, multi-core on both, standard test. I have reset the averages and maximums on both now. Titan on the left, Scar 18 on the right. I'm going to zoom in primarily on the HW info window as we explore our temperatures and all of that, okay? So first of all, comparing clock speed, you need to know that there's going to be some silicon lottery variance between these two, okay? Pretty significant variance can occur, especially with the 14th gen Intel, since they're not silicon binned out of the box. All right, 4.1, so 4.09 on the P cores, 3.3, 3.4 on the E cores for the Titan. For the Scar 18, we're looking at 4.1 to 4.2 on the P cores and 3.5 on the E cores. So out of the box performance so far, better clock speeds on the Scar by a little bit. Let's move down to our power limits and temperatures. Core temps on the Titan are a little bit better at 80, 94, average temp 77, 90. Core temps on the Scar, 89, 94. So a little bit hotter on the Scar. Looking at actual package power going through the system, which I think is probably going to be a lot more indicative of performance regardless of the silicon lottery, Titan 151 watts going through continuously. The Scar 18, we're doing 120, 160, 151, 140. Our average so far has been 149 on the Titan, 154 on the Scar. So average, and I reset them about the same time at the beginning of our run here. The average here is probably the best indicator of long-term performance. Scar 18 edging out the Titan by about 5 watts on average. Gizmos of Tech, why don't you review PCs? I don't know, my passion is just more for laptops. It's more specialized, and I enjoy it. I don't know. I enjoy it more. But I like desktops too. I've built a bunch of my own desktops, and I typically own a desktop and a laptop most of the time. So, and I have reviewed some desktops. I just don't focus on it as much. Okay, but thanks for the suggestion, and I appreciate you looking out. Okay, so 79 degrees on average right now for the core temp, 91 for the package temp on average. Let's see, as we go on through our test, let's see which of these laptops can continuously push higher wattages through the CPU. Currently, middle of the run, 147, 44, 145, 141, 137. Our average for the Scar appears to be going down a little bit, averaging 148 now. The Titan, 133 for the wattage, averaging 148. Our averages are basically identical right now. Our temperature averages are about 8 degrees cooler on the Titan for the core temps. The package temp is identical at 91 on both, and both did achieve thermal throttling at least a little bit. Going to our core speeds, let's look at our averages. 4.06, 4.02, 4.06, 4.07. Over here on the Scar, averages 4.04, 4.08, 008, 003, 3.96, 4.03. Averages for our E-cores, 3.33, 3.4. So our E-cores are doing better on the Scar, but our P-cores doing a little better on the Titan. Very, very close. Silicon lottery level differences in terms of performance, quality. From a CPU multi-core rendering perspective, these two laptops are functionally identical is the way I would describe it, I think. Similar cooling potential, though the Titan a little better on the temps here, 8 degrees cooler. But in terms of actual wattages and clock speeds going through everything, basically identical. Okay, let's go ahead and move into our actual test results, which I have done before the live stream began. I'm going to stop this. There we go. All right, so first up, Asus had a McAfee pop-up. So just wanted to shame them again a little bit. MSI also had an antivirus. I can't remember if it was McAfee or which one it was. But yeah, don't love that. Really don't love that. Okay, so Cinebench R23 performance. There on the right for the Scar, Cinebench R23 performance. On the left, I don't want to do multi-window. And windows with multi-windows can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. We're talking 10-minute scores here. I need to disable our overlay. for right now. $30,256. I'll just tilt the camera up a little bit. That's easier. Okay, so $30,256 for the Titan. Scar 18, $30,412. That to me is silicon lottery level variance. It's very, very minimal. Single threaded performance slightly higher, 2182 on the Titan. 2166, again, silicon lottery level variance. Basically a tie in Cinebench R23. Let's move to Cinebench R24. Here we are. So Cinebench R24, GPU score, Scar 18 won by just a few hundred points, about 500 points. That's maybe significant enough, but not a huge difference. CPU multi, Scar 18 also won 1755 versus 1697. Not a huge difference again. Single core, Scar 18 won all three of those, I guess, because it also won single core by 2 points. So, but still, it's like less than a 5% difference for all three of these. So to me, that's most likely a silicon lottery level difference. So nearly identical CPU performance. Ada 64. There we go. Ada 64, the Scar, I would say, definitely wins by a fairly large margin. You know, we're looking at in the 50,000 range mark for the memory. And notice that the speed here is actually set to the same memory bus speed. 3600 for both. DDR5 3600, DDR5 3600. So 3591 for both. And yet the Scar 18 is much faster because it's only 16 gigs of memory versus 4 sticks of 32 gigs. You know, and this one is 2 sticks of 16. So the lower RAM capacity, boosting the actual translation of speed into real world potential performance. That said, this memory speed is not likely to make a big difference except in memory sensitive games and applications. So not a huge deal unless you know for sure you really want a lot of memory speed. Scar 18 had worse timings but better results. Yeah, it's very interesting, right? And the interesting part to me too is that so like you said, the timings here are wider, and yet the Scar 18 is better. And Asus also claims that this RAM should be running at DDR5 5600, not 3600. So I don't know why Ada 64 was detecting 3600. Maybe it was really running at 5600 and this is just a sensor error right there. I don't know. But in reality, like the way these are scored, it would make sense that it would make sense to me if we were looking at 5600 mega transfers versus 3600 mega transfers in terms of speed. 84,000 versus 54,000 is pretty significant memory speed difference. 100 latency, 101 versus 83 is also a pretty significant latency difference. And those can translate into slightly better 1% lows in many titles potentially, but not like a massive difference, like pretty minimal, you know? Like it needs to be a memory sensitive game, maybe like Hogwarts or something similar. You can check in Task Manager, so Ada 64 could be reading it wrong. Well, we can check. Let's go ahead and go to, we can try to go in Taskmaster. Where in Task Manager is it? Is it under memory? Yeah, this says 5600 for the memory speed in Task Manager. So maybe Ada64 is just reading the memory speed wrong, because that would make sense if the memory speed is actually 5600 versus, 3600 from the 128 gigs of RAM. That's the main thing you gotta keep in mind. This is 128 gigs of RAM. It's way higher capacity, which means more densely packed chips, which means it's harder to navigate the pathways and have the same response time and speed of the chips. So usually 32 gigs is the sweet spot for faster RAM speed. I exited that, but we still need to pull up our DiskMark. Speed. Goodness, this is annoying. Dealing with the Windows resizing problems. Okay, and then here we'll go ahead and make this a little bigger. Okay, I guess I'll raise the camera up a little. There we go. Okay, so in the Titan, we have 2 SSDs in RAID 0, which is why we have dramatically faster SSD speed. 13,700 and 10,600 for the write. Read 7,000, 5,000 is still exceptionally good. I don't think you're going to see any noticeable gains in terms of performance unless you're doing extremely data intensive tasks. Because the speed is already so good without RAID 0, it's still cool to have a higher number. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and put those wins. Let's tally them into into our benches here. Cinebench R23 is a tie. R24 is a tie. I would say it's a tie. Time Spy. We have not done Time Spy yet. Let's do Time Spy side by side. I see what's happening there. There we go. Okay. Okay. We're just going to close down some extra stuff here. So Ada64, CrystalDiskMark, Titan wins. Ada64, Star 18 wins. So let's do our Time Spy test. And we'll do it live so that you guys can see the actual overlays and everything. Clark says, oh, I'm 2 hours late. What did I miss? Well, you can kind of see a summary of the results so far. I'll let you kind of peruse this if you want. Of course, you can go back and look at the results for the tests. Overall, it's been a pretty back and forth battle with a lot of ties. And yeah, it's almost tied exactly overall. Pretty insane, actually. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna need to turn the overlay back on. I'll set this to be only zero. And we'll set the overlay for Riva. I don't know, 1600. This is going to be hard to know what size I need everything to be. So let me just do a quick. Just going to do a quick run and see if we're all sized correctly now or not. It's going to be pretty close. Okay. Can you please test Cyberpunk without ray tracing? Yeah, I may do that. We'll see. I do test it pretty regularly without ray tracing, and it's a huge performance boost. Paul A says, hey, Brandon, do you see a faint LED grid on bright backlight backgrounds on any of the panels? Do you see a faint LED grid on bright backgrounds on any of the panels? So that's a bright background on this over here. I don't see it on the Titan. I don't see it on either one. Are you sure you didn't drop the blank into the fan? Sounds super loud. What? What do you think I dropped in there? Okay, so interesting. It's running things quite a bit differently. What the heck? So, just so you can see what's going on here, the Titan is a 4K display running the QHD Titan Spy test, and it's doing it in a borderless window fashion here. It's cutting off part of our display stats though, which is no good. So I'm going to reset this. I need to go to maybe 1400. For our display stats, Time Spy. So both of these laptops are in manual, max fan mode, and then extreme performance with cooler booster. And for our GPU, we have a 100/50 OC on the Titan. Let's see what we have on. We have a 150/100. So let's do a 100. Let's do a 100/100 for both of them. All right. That should be a nice balance of reasonable benchmark, but not too much overclock. Trying to Trying to get these display overlays to be as overlaid as possible. That looks pretty dang good. Okay. It must be just background noise or something hissing, but it gets loud when you lean forward. Well, I do kind of lean over the mic, and when I lean forward, I'm also times distracted typing or doing other stuff, and that will cause the mic gain to go up and increase in how much volume is being picked up. Okay, so looking at our stats for the SCAR, since that happened to go first here, we're looking at 2070 for our boost clock, 2080, 170 watts approximately. The Titan 2200 on the boost clock, quite a bit higher. All right, so much higher out of the box. Factory overclock the Titan gets. It's very interesting. It's kind of akin to like a shunt mod overclock, in that it's nothing the user has control over. It's done in the BIOS level. And it must be just putting more wattage through that GPU because it's about 150 higher boost clock on that GPU. Temps, 59 degrees. It was 62 on the Titan, or 62 on the SCAR versus 59. Very similar GPU temps. CPU temps also are very good, I think, on both. 75, 74 wattage for the CPU, 55 versus and 70, 65 on the CPU. Really great temps on the SCAR overall. And I like how efficient the wattage is on the CPU for the SCAR. That's very nice. Notice that the Titan is pulling more wattage, and yet it's probably not going to put that much more performance through the Titan. It maybe helps with 1% lows or something like that, but not like a huge difference, you know? So, all right. Anything else to keep in mind? Memory clock is the same, so there's no factory overclock to the memory, but the Titan is definitely ramping that GPU boost at a higher level out of the box, which is interesting. And same for the CPU. The CPU is also just ramping higher wattages and maybe higher boost clock to the CPU clock speed. It's hard to say. Temperatures, though, on the Titan are remaining good. So from my perspective, evaluating this level of performance between the two, I'd say the Titan theoretically should score a little higher than the SCAR 18. Maybe between like 5% higher, if I were to just say roughly. Interesting. Are both laptops 4K? No, they are. SCAR 18 is a QHD plus, and the Titan 18HX is a 4K plus. So both 16:10 aspect ratios. All right, so let me move SCAR 18 over. Whoa. Wow, that's a pretty significant difference in terms of graphics score out of the box. And I thought I scored higher last time. You know, like I thought we got closer to 22,000, or just a little under 22,000 in the graphics score. That seems a little low for some reason. I don't know. 22,868. According to the software, we're overclocked the same, but the VBIOS must have a stronger overclock on the Titan out of the box. So interesting. Pretty significant performance difference in terms of time spy performance. This should translate into gameplay performance as well, but only when the game is severely GPU limited or GPU bound. So let's go ahead and put this in. I would say that the Titan wins the time spy test. Titan by about 1,600 points. All right, so let's get our gaming tests going. We have 10 games to test today. We'll see if that TimeSpy score translates into real-world gaming performance advantages for the Titan as we continue on here. So Baldur's Gate 3 is our first game for today. Don't I get sweaty because they're bringing hot to you? No, I got a fan pointed at my legs down below, and that keeps airflow coming in the room as well. I think it's really important to try to maintain the room temperature as much as possible so that we don't have heat build up in the room. So I'm in an air-conditioned house. We set it to 73 degrees, and the room I'm in stays about that, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Okay, so we're gonna make sure that we're set to exactly the same graphics settings on both laptops. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So we're going to do QHD Plus for all of the games today. Go ahead and mute the sound there. Overall preset will be set to Ultra with DLSS on quality, QHD Plus. So 16 by 10 aspect ratio will be what we're going to be doing today. Go ahead and mute the audio for the Scar. Ultra graphics preset, DLSS on quality. Same exact resolution. No VSync. Beautiful. Checking chat. When you stop talking, it sounds loud like an airport. Yeah, it's because the mic increases its gain, meaning that it'll pick up more noise overall, which is advantageous and disadvantageous at the same time. Okay. So here we are. All right, so first I want to point out that we are not GPU bound in either laptop. We're in the 80s approximately for GPU bounding, which means that we are being CPU and potentially memory bound in this scenario. All right, being CPU bound, our CPU on the Titan is running faster at 95 watts of power versus 80 watts of power. That means that our clock speed on the Titan is probably ramping up a little bit higher. Our temperatures are also getting pretty spicy in the 90s here because of that increased CPU power pull. That is also translating into more FPS, 267. Also, our GPU boost clock, 2400 versus 2100. Interesting. Also, our wattage on the GPU occasionally dips lower down to like the 90s or something. It's interesting. Wattage pull, about the same, bouncing around the 150 to 160 mark because we are CPU bound at QHD resolution here in Baldur's Gate 3. So I'm going to go ahead and test. I'm going to go ahead and reset the benchmark numbers for both. And we're going to end turn on both right now. Interesting. 1% low performance appears to be better on the Titan so far. Wow, things do appear to be noticeably smoother on the Titan. 120 for a 1% low. A lot smoother frame time graph if you observe these spikes. There is some spikes still happening on the Titan, but it is less often. Average FPS also being higher by about 10%. So double the 1% low performance on the Titan and about 10% more average FPS. That's pretty significant. I'd say Titan clearly wins this side by side. Baldur's Gate 3 goes to the Titan. Next up, we have Cyberpunk 2077. I'm going to go ahead and get that loaded, and then I'll put in which one won into our scorecard. So, Titan wins. I'm gonna put 10%. Titan by 10% in Baldur's Gate 3. That should help give us a little bit more realistic view of by how much did one win versus the other. The Titan's price is also Titanic. Not surprising it wins. Titan just crazy. Yeah, the Titan is doing a great job so far. So Cyberpunk 2077, I'm gonna turn the brightness of the displays up a couple notches to about 50%. I think that might help us pick up a little bit more here. Okay, so we gotta change resolution on the Titan. Full HD plus, 2560 by 1600. Graphics. Ray tracing ultra. DLSS will be on quality. Ray reconstruction enabled. All right. Graphics. Ray tracing on ultra. DLSS on quality. Ray reconstruction, frame gen enabled. And just to make sure, we're going to go back and forth and turn off DLSS from quality to balance because sometimes this game is buggy. All right, so we have the exact same running settings running on both laptops. Let's go ahead and run our benchmark. I don't know which one's going to win. What do you think, chat? I think the Titan will win again, but we'll see. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get our averages going here. Wow. The Titan, again, quite a bit better FPS. Averages and 1% low are impressively better. Very interesting. Key differences so far. Higher boost clock on the GPU for the Titan. Higher CPU wattage pull for the Titan. Higher temperature for the CPU on the Titan. I guess not by much now, but it was, yeah, it's averaging higher for sure. But that is significant. About a 10 FPS improvement. 1% lows also significantly better at 86. Loading speed also was a little faster on the Titan. That's why it's a little bit ahead in the benchmark. I clicked it almost identically. Well, not quite. I guess I clicked it on the Titan a little bit first. So maybe loading speed is not as big a deal. All right, so 111.8 versus 103.7. So, and 1% low performance, much better as well. Man, frame time graph was looking better on the Titan as well. So that is a, based on average FPS by calculated by the game engine, 103.7 versus 111. That's an 8 FPS improvement. So it's about a 7% win for the Titan. Okay, moving into Dead Space next. Can you also test ray tracing overdrive on both laptops? Since this is what people are using. Oh, I meant to try turning ray tracing off in Cyberpunk. I just time crunched today. I got to keep moving through the games. That's the truth, y'all. So I'm sorry. Titan isn't a gaming machine. It's literally a war machine. What? All right, so we need to make sure that we're set to the correct resolution and settings on both laptops. DLSS on quality, graphics on ultra. For some reason, it did not load our cloud save. So now we have the cloud save going. Let's see if we can load back in again. Otherwise we have to go through the whole like intro to the game and everything. What's your internet speed? I have fiber. 1 up and down, 1 gig up and down. It's nice. Views React says, you are doing a great job, bro. Thanks, man. I'm trying my best, trying to make it as useful as possible. All right, so we're in. Just gonna make sure that our graphic settings did not change when we reset our save there. Okay, video options. So we need to change the resolution down on the Titan. Ultra graphics. DLSS on quality. Good, good. All right, so here we are. Dead Space. Interesting. Very interesting. You can see that we are in like the exact same scenario. The exact same framing and everything. Have not moved since loading into the game. And you can see FPS on the Scar is better. Significantly. All right, I'm going to turn the camera up just a little bit so make it easier to see the numbers here. I turned it up a little bit on both, so still extremely similarly framed. 128 on the SCAR, 45 for our 1% low, 120, 56 for our averages. So the SCAR is winning by 8 FPS. And I think it's because of the memory speed. I think. We had faster memory on the SCAR 18. And in this situation, we are being more CPU bound. See our GPU right here? 80% GPU utilization versus 97% GPU utilization. That's giving us more FPS because we're able to more utilize our GPU better on the SCAR. Even though we're pulling higher CPU wattages on the Titan, because it doesn't really matter if you can pull higher CPU wattage, have a higher clock speed on the CPU if your memory can't keep up. That would be my guess. That's the only thing that I could think could impact the FPS performance here. I don't know. That's my, maybe there's some other reason, but that's my current, if I were to guess what it is. All right, let's go ahead and just move these together at the same time. Center up, center up. All right, so we're still moving around and the averages are staying super similar. Not much difference in terms of just standing still versus walking around. I mean, I think this is a great test overall. And I mean, I would say that this is a great example of perhaps, you know, maximizing your wattage may not be the end all be all in terms of performance. All right, so we're going to be walking the exact same way. During that test, since walking and loading in 120 versus 130, but 1% low is a little better. The frame time graph looking a little cleaner on the Titan, I'd say on average. Only 5 FPS more on average for this area of the game, which is very interesting. Okay, now we've got to the end here. We'll go ahead and end it. Wow, the SCAR 18 went up by 12 at the end. So that gives the SCAR 18 about a 9 to 10% win in dead space. Putting our win in for the SCAR 18. SCAR 18 by, we're gonna give it 10%. So we have a nice back and forth battle here. Dead Space representing some of the more CPU bound type game. Let's see here. I'm having to switch back and forth which one is online. Dragon's Dogma 2 is next, which is another potentially CPU-bound game. Titan has higher cross-load allocation versus Scar 18. I guess it is mainly down to memory speed differences. Yeah, well, the Titan has more CPU power range. The Titan can just go to a higher CPU power limit while the GPU is under full load. You know, we're talking 175 watts to the GPU with the CPU pulling like 95 watts at the same time. Okay, so we're going to double check our display settings. We are at our settings for this game are right here. QHD resolution, ray tracing enabled, DLSS on quality, and we're at the high graphics settings for the defaults. The Titan is building the shaders right now, compiling the shaders. We can go ahead and get the Scar 18 into the game though. I think you should put EAFC into benchmark list. What is EAFC? EA Electronic Arts FC. Euro? I don't know which one that is. Are both of them running in undervolt? No, first foe, our friend, they neither of them are undervolting. Juan Cruz, hey, you added display test. You are a king. Indeed, we got the Scar 18 display test. It's a football game. Oh, interesting. A CPU-bound football game? That is very interesting. Okay, so we got to get the Titan. With the right display and graphical settings now. Starts out all incorrect. High graphics settings, ray tracing on, DLSS on quality, 2560 by 1600. Save changes. Load from last save. Okay, we should be good now. Final championships. Okay, gotcha. Interesting, yeah. A lot of EA games suck for optimization. It's true. Okay, here we are. Dragon's Dogma 2. Probably very CPU bound in this section of the game. As you can see, we are in the exact same loaded in area of the game. There's the same guy walking actually on the screen and everything. So we appear to be in the dual load. We have been... I reset the benchmark about 20 seconds ago already. Extremely CPU bound. Our GPU is only at 43%, 42% GPU utilization. Boost clock is through the roof on both the Scar and the Titan. Only 100 watts being utilized. CPU, 80 watts on the Scar, 109 on the Titan. We're getting a little bit more FPS because of this CPU boost that the Titan has. 8168 versus 7765. Very, very close though. It's not a huge gap, only 4 FPS. That's a 5% win for the Titan. I will try to do a running test as well and just verify our results here. All right, so we're going to reset our FPS on both, and we are walking. We're walking the exact same direction, similar-ish NPCs on the screen. We got our followers running around. Titan, still 4 FPS ahead, slightly higher 1% lows as well. All right, we're going to give the win to the Titan by 5%. Not a huge margin. Very close. Titan by 5%. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next game, which is Dying Light 2. Trung says, can you review the GP68HX cheapest 40, I think 80 laptop is what you're saying? And I've reviewed the GP68 from 2023, I believe. Maybe it was the 2020. Check my channel. I'm not done the 2024 GP68 for sure. But maybe the 2023 version or 2021 version, depending on, I can't read your full comment, but it's yeah. The main thing to look for in any reviews for the GP series is look for display quality. Make sure the display quality is not bad. Okay? High quality ray tracing, we need to set our resolution to be the same. No VSync, DLSS on quality, frame generation is enabled. Let's go ahead and save this setting. DLSS on quality, high quality ray tracing, frame generation is enabled. We are ready to go into the benchmark. I clicked the Titan about 1 second, maybe 1.5 seconds earlier than this car. Load times appear to be very similar. All right, so let's take a look. We are GPU bottlenecked on this one. 98% GPU utilization's good. CPU, again, ramping a little higher on the Titan. Average FPS right now is averaging about 10 FPS more on the Titan. Not a huge gap, but pretty significant since we are GPU bound. The GPU boost clock at 2200 versus 2100 right now. It's about 120, 150 gap in boost clock, probably on average. That's what's given the Titan the FPS advantage, as far as I can tell. It probably helps that the CPU can pull a little higher wattage as well, but we'll see what we get here when we get to the end of the benchmark. It's it's pretty noticeably advantaged to the Titan. We will be using the official benchmark numbers, but instead of the Afterburner numbers. Overall temps wise, the Titan just has higher CPU temps because it's pulling more wattage. Overall frames, according to Afterburner, 11 more FPS on the Titan. Okay, so here we go. All right, so according to the official benchmark, 157 on the Titan versus 144 on the Scar. That's a 13 FPS advantage for the Titan. 13 FPS advantage at around this point is gonna be %8 advantage to the Titan. So Titan wins by 8%. Next game, God of War. A very GPU-bound game. I'm anticipating that the Titan's going to win this one as well. Clark, yeah, they don't test their own chat. It's kind of annoying. I'm like trying to read the latest chat that you guys send me, and I'm like, I can't read it. It's the last words are on the right are blocked, which can be pretty debilitating when it's like an important number, like a type of GPU or a CPU or something like that. Okay, so the Titan is set to the correct graphics settings already. Ultra graphics. So QHD Plus with Ultra graphics is correct. Okay, so we have reset our FPS numbers on both sides. We are in the exact same scene loaded in. 69, 68, 69, 68. So nearly identical GPU temps. Boost clock on the GPU hitting a bit higher. 2130, 2150 versus 2000, 1930, 1975, 1980. Titan Scar is bouncing around quite a bit. CPU 88, 91. Higher temps on the CPU for the Titan, but also higher wattage pulls, a little higher temps there. About 10 FPS more on the Titan once again. Very interesting result. Let's go ahead and back up to do our official test run. Okay, we ended up with 123 versus 116, much higher 1% lows again. So that's a 7 FPS increase. So about a 4, 5, 7 FPS at this level. I guess it's more like 5.5, 6% performance gain for the Titan, but 1% low performance, much better. So we're going to give the Titan the win again by about, we're going to say 6%. All right. On to Hogwarts Legacy next. Divierso Farlight. I don't think 10 FPS matters at all when it costs 1K more than the other. Well, I mean, yes and no. It depends on how consistently higher performance it is. And I think it also matters too. It matters too which version of the Titan you get, because there is the 64 gig, I think 2 terabyte SSD version that's $46.99. This is not that version. This is the more expensive version. Yeah, if you're after, I mean, if you're looking to justify the increased cost of the Titan, having more GPU performance might be able to help you out a little bit in, like, you know, when you do the mental gymnastics of should I spend as much as I spend on a small car on a laptop. So for some reason, Hogwarts Legacy is not loading on the Titan. Let me try running it one more time. See if it'll run for us. If it doesn't run, there's not much I can do. Looks like we're loading. That's good. There we go. Now we're loading the shaders. Some people are rich enough to justify the extra Titan cost. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're after like the best of the best, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea of the Titan. In theory, at least. You're getting some of the best possible performance out there. For sure. I think the primary competitor with the Titan for top performing gaming laptop overall is probably going to be the XMG Neo 16. Last year's Titan and the XMG Neo basically had higher GPU boost clocks compared to all the other laptops out of the box. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start verifying the settings. The SCAR, we're running ultra settings, QHD plus on both of these laptops. Ray tracing is enabled. And frame generation is enabled. Ultra ray tracing, yep, everything is good on both. Let's go ahead and load in. So, Hogwarts Legacy, notoriously poorly optimized at launch. Some setting is not the same because these FPS values are vastly different. Let's see here. Windowed, full screen. Let's just go ahead and do these settings side by side. And chat, let me know if you see any setting that is way off or something. DLSS on quality, frame generation enabled. All of those are the same. Render resolution is exactly the same. Game presets are the same. Ray tracing is on the same. Everything is the same. Why? Why? Why is the FPS so vastly better on the Titan? What is going on? And also, holy schmoly, 190 FPS on the Titan is nuts. 1% lows are through the roof, 148. What? Okay, we gotta reset. We're gonna reset on both because that is ridiculous. No way. There's no way some setting can't be. There's gotta be some setting that's not right. So, just ordinary guy. Brandon, I'm curious, is it safe to use laptops with 92C temperature every gaming session for 45 years? Yeah. I don't think you're going to have... I don't think you're going to run any problems. CPUs are designed to run safely at 100 degrees Celsius or less for probably 10 years continuously. That's, to the best of my knowledge, the truth. So I think the main downside to running a temperature hot and heavy is that eventually you may run into some thermal throttling if you're in a less than ideal environment. Like if you're in an air-conditioned environment and you're thermal throttling, and then you go to an even hotter environment, you're going to throttle harder, and that's going to cause performance degradation, essentially. Okay, we're going to verify our settings again. Everything's ultra ray tracing enabled, frame generation enabled. DLSS quality. Yeah, I mean, something is going on right now. Probably related to the 4K QHD display not giving us the same render resolution. That is the only thing that I can think of to be the likely cause of this performance issue. I'll try doing windowed to try to get us back on track. Windowed is still giving us way better performance. Freaky levels of performance on the Titan right now. It is amazing, the difference. The level of 1% low and stutters we're getting on the Scar is nutty. This is really weird, and it's the kind of thing I'm like, what's going on? Like, oh my. We're being severely CPU bound over here on the Scar, just constant CPU bounding and nothing. There's almost no blips at all on the Titan. It's like running perfectly smooth. I mean, super weird. Super weird. It's just, it doesn't even make any sense. Literally double the FPS on the Titan. 90 versus 179. All right, well, I guess the Titan wins this one, unless I mean I'm gonna. I don't see any way to be like it's not valid, but I mean it's probably something going on. It's probably something going on. Some bugginess going on in the background or something. I don't know. What FPS do you usually see in this game? At QHD resolution, usually between like, for an RTX 4090, usually between 105 to 135, 140 range. So, I mean, the Titan was exceeding that by a fair margin. So we're on to Last of Us Part 1. Titan by 100% bug. Probably some kind of bug. All right. Last of Us Part 1. We're going to be doing boop 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 boop. Interesting. Frame generation is available when anti-aliasing mode is set to FSR3 native AA. So, Last of Us Part 1 has FSR3 support with frame gen, but not DLSS with frame gen. How about that, y'all? How about them apples? Thankfully, AMD lets NVIDIA GPUs also use frame gen or FSR, so we can still use it on both of these machines. Very interesting. All right, so 2560 by 1600. This is the first game that I've ever seen that with. And the second game I'll be testing with FSR3, so that's going to be pretty interesting. We're going to be doing Ultra Graphics preset. Just straight Ultra Graphics preset, okay? QHD. Do we have VSync on? We want no VSync. So FSR3 with frame gen enabled, Ultra Graphics preset for both. Looks like it was already set to Ultra Graphics preset because it's not letting me apply it. DLSS doubling the FPS? Maybe, I don't know. Something's going on. DLSS usually does, or frame gen does not usually double FPS. I just think it's probably related. I think it's probably related to native 4K on the Titan being ran in windowed mode or something, I don't know. And that's messing with how Hogwarts is rendering some stuff, or I don't know. That's my only guess that I can think of in terms of what's going on with that. Okay. 99% GPU utilization, 99% GPU utilization, sometimes jumping down to 95. So almost being a little CPU bottlenecked a little bit here on the SCAR 18. That's going to help our 1% low pretty significantly. 168, 135. Wow. Again, 1% low being far superior on the Titan. Man, big performance difference. Yeah. All right, and we're in the exact same scene right now. We're not even walking around or doing anything yet. 168, 153. That's a 14% FPS gain for the Titan, so about an 8% boost to the Titan FPS overall. But 1% low. 2.5 times greater on the Titan. All right, we're going to start walking around and looking around, so let's just go ahead and back up. Stairs, I don't know what to do. I guess we could go through the little scene where we see our daddy come home and zombies come out to play. This is such a good game. If you like horror games, one of the best horror games ever made. So I'm going to reset our FPS. Here's a little FPS cutscene. 140 versus 131. I gotta say the frame time graph on the SCAR is looking a lot better there. We'll calculate it up after the end of this scene. So, boom, that's the end of the scene. We'll go ahead, calculate it. 10 FPS increase at 130. We're looking at about 7.5% performance gain, I believe. 1% lows, huge. 101 versus 66. Smoother overall experience on the Titan. Still very smooth on the SCAR, but definitely better on the Titan. Starfield is next. Titan by 7%. And that's with FSR 3 enabled. Team Titan for the win. Yeah. LSP says, as long as you treat its sequel doesn't exist. Is the sequel that bad? LOL. SCAR needs a price decrease with those 1% lows. Oh boy. Yeah, super weird 1% low performance differences. All right, so here I am. We're in Starfield. We're getting our settings set up. We're doing Ultra Graphics preset. We're doing upscaling with frame gen enabled. FSR 3 is fine. Just make sure that that took. It did. Display, graphics preset, ultra preset. Oh, I gotta turn off dynamic render resolution for the Scar. FSR3 frame generation on. Titan uses RAM much more. Perhaps this is the reason. I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. Yeah, the RAM should be slower on the Titan based on the 864 RAM speed test. I think we may have crashed on the Scar. We did crash. Let's load back in. It does have 4 RAM slots. That's correct. So, you know, I don't know if it's running in quad channel versus dual channel and how that might affect performance. Maybe that's one of the sources of some of the performance gains, but I don't think it's likely. I think the GPU boost is probably more likely to be affecting things. No dynamic resolution. Thank you. All right. One thing I will say for the Titan frame time graph and 1% low performance has been pretty consistently more consistent than the Scar 18. All right. So we are in the exact same scenario right now. The exact same visuals. Have not touched anything. We're looking at the same Aquila home base right off the port. And once again, 1% low performance, better on the Titan. 127, 60, 148, 48. So average FPS right now is a 12% gain, which is going to translate to 48 is about 7.5% performance gain, maybe 8% performance gain. But again, 1% low, absolutely rock solid on the Titan and not rock solid on the Scar. Let's go ahead and run. Well, let's reset our FPS counter, and now we are running. Aquila being one of the more demanding areas of Starfield, with its super high population density and lots of NPCs running around. So, still maintaining higher 1% lows and higher FPS right now on the Titan. $143, $130, that's a 13 FPS gain and 10% performance increase and double the 1% lows. So Starfield, Titan wins again. Witcher 3 is our last game. And then we're going to get into a summary of everything that we've found in today's live stream. Solemnify, let's go, Titan baby. Yeah, Titan is kicking some tail today. It is, it's doing great. I'm not sure what to expect for DDR5 versus DDR6. Might be interesting to see the differences. All right, ray tracing enabled. DLSS on quality. We're on ultra settings. Gotta go to the right resolution. Okay, good. Looks like I need to switch which of these laptops is in offline mode because the cloud is not up to date on the SCAR, so we need to get our gameplay saved so we can test in the same area. I still get some occasional accidental clicks on the Titan. I feel like the touchpad sensitivity, like this whole live stream I've been using touchpad only for both of these to control them. And I gotta say, it feels pretty noticeable that when the Titan messes up. I want to make sure we click just click it one more time. All right, so we are loading into the exact same area for The Witcher 3. The Titan's almost 2,000 more euros in Europe. Wow, that's a huge difference. Okay. Here we are. GPU wattage, very similar, 169-ish on both, but boost clock on the Titan higher. 99% GPU utilization, 65 degrees on the GPU. A little bit warmer on the Titan than it is on the SCAR. CPU, 88 degrees versus 81. So again, the Titan running a little higher CPU wattage. 130, 110 versus 122, 74. In the exact same scene in The Witcher 3. Pretty interesting, pretty nice advantage for the Titan, 8 FPS. In this scenario, 8 FPS is about a 6% advantage. Let's go ahead and I'm going to reset our FPS counters and we're going to start moving around through the fort. Controlling 2 Witchers at once is very difficult. Okay. We're going to reset and walk roughly the same path. And for the jump here, we're just going to fall on both and die. Cool. So before that happened, this is going to be a different save location, and that's fine. We had a 6% performance gain in the other scene. We can count that one, and then we'll count this one, and we'll kind of average it out, I guess. Okay. All right. So 109 versus 101. 8 FPS gain with 101 FPS is about an 8% gain. 93 versus 66. Again, better 1% low with the Titan. We can do a little bit of running here. Sure. Let's see if we can. Can we run off this thing and die again? That'd be cool. Oh, we're going to fall. Oh, no, we didn't fall. Oh, I'm so good at this. Okay, yeah, it's still staying about the same performance gap. So about 8% performance going to the Titan. If we average the two tests together, it would be a 7% performance advantage to the Titan. Let's just do that. So, Shabam, Witcher 3, Titan by 7%. All right, time to do the final summary of everything we found out. Let's do it. And silence. Okay. So, all right. Okay. What's up, and welcome to my benchmark battle between the Titan 18HX and the Scar 18. This is the two 2024 laptops that two of the best 18. These are two of the best 18-inch gaming laptops that money can buy. Now, the fully equipped Scar 18 that we have today costs $38.99 versus the Titan coming in at $53.99. A quick overview of the Titan. We have an i9 14900HX and an RTX 4090 in both laptops, 128 gigs of DDR5, 5600 running at 3600 mega transfers though, 4 terabyte SSD, which is 2 terabytes, two 2 terabytes in RAID 0, and a 4K plus UHD plus 120 hertz mini LED display. Now, the Scar 18 that we reviewed today is an i9 14900HX with an RTX 4090, 32 gigs of DDR5, 56 running at 5600 mega transfers, 2 terabyte SSD, and a QHD 240 hertz 100% DCI-P3 color gamut display. And realistically, the CPU performance is so similar. You can see that the CPU performance, Cinebench R23 and 24, it was essentially a tie, silicon lottery differences, with the wattage running through the CPU averaging about 148 watts continuously for an extended period of time. The speaker test, the Titan wins by a noticeable margin. It was louder, and maybe the Scar 18 had a little better clarity, but that's probably because it was also running at lower volume. Overall, the speakers in both are pretty good. The Titan just a bit better. Display quality, the Scar 18 was brighter at 930 nits versus 890 nits for the Titan in their best display measurement qualification modes. So depending on how you configure, there's a lot of different ways you can configure each of these displays. The MSI giving the true color application option, with the Scar 18 giving you the multi-zone application option for the local dimming zones and how they work. So overall, I like the blend of the resolution and display quality on the Scar 18 a little better, because also the color gamut was like a few percentage points better, about 3% more of the P3 color gamut on the Scar 18, and I like a 240 hertz display more than a 120 hertz display because I'm an esports gamer and I definitely can tell the difference between 120 hertz and 240 hertz. That said, the Titan 18 still can play esports pretty well. The display is very responsive and feels good to play those esports games. Weighing in, the Scar 18 was 1.1 pounds lighter. The Titan definitely is a bit beefier to haul around. Overall, the build quality is very close. But I think the Titan wins for rigidity and build materials, where the Scar 18 wins for hinge design. Those are the kind of the two primary things. That's why I called it a tie, but if we were to break it down, that's how I would break it down. Design comparisons, Scar 18 has better RGB implementation with its front RGB, rear RGB, and those are cool, but I think the big design snafu that the MSI made was making the rear not have RGB at all. And then the rear also has those blue indicator lights on the Titan that are not lights, but this blue thing on the back makes the laptop feel gamery even if you disable RGB, where with the Scar, you can disable the RGB and you can go into a business meeting and not feel like you're a gamer showing off your unicorn vomit, you know? So depending, it gives you more versatility as a professional with the Scar 18. The light up touchpad on the Titan is really cool. It works really well as well. Now the glass touchpad on the Scar 18 is great, I think, as well. It's kind of a softer click. Some people will like that, some people won't. The main thing about the haptic touchpad on the Titan is that you need to learn to use a very soft touch with it. Otherwise, you'll accidentally click fairly often. Still, they did do a BIOS update. Make sure you updated the BIOS on the Titan to get the new mouse firmware, or whatever you want to call it, to make it feel a lot better. But I still think it could use some more tweaking, or maybe user-specific pressure sensitivity adjustment on the, some kind of utility or tool, and maybe an MSI center to adjust the touchpad. Overall, both touchpads are great. I think the color light up touchpad on the Titan is more special looking for sure. Windows Hello on the Titan is also really awesome. G-Sync and Advanced Optimus on the Scar 18, big advantage to the Scar 18 in that sense. Now, for software, I skipped over keyboard. Let's talk keyboard for a moment. Keyboard on both, lots of functionality, full number pad on both. Both feel really good to type on. Titan 18HX mechanical Cherry MX keys are one of the reasons why the Titan is more expensive than the Scar. And it definitely adds thickness and some weight as well. And I think the Titan feels great to type on. It's just kind of loud to type on. Some people will like that. Some people won't like that. It's going to depend on personal preference. The actual layout, I think, is about equal, and functionality is about equal, but different functionality pros and cons for each one. Max fan noise, Scar 18 noticeably quieter, 65 decibels versus, I think, 56 decibels for the Scar 18 is a 9 decibels quieter environment. And then when actually using the laptops under load, the Scar 18 was also quieter while running almost as much wattage. So if you're after a better balance of acoustics, the Scar 18, big advantage there. TimeSpy GPU Titan won by 1,600 points in our test with both laptops running a 100/100 overclock. That shows that the Titan has a factory overclock being applied through their vBIOS most likely. And we can see that through the GPU boost clock being consistently about 100 to 150 clock points higher. So that's a pretty big difference right there. Okay. CrystalDiskMark. Titan wins because it's running RAID 0. And depending on which version of the Titan you get, you'll have RAID 0 or you won't. So overall, both are fast enough SSDs to have tremendous speed, and you're not going to really notice much loading difference. Like, we clicked a lot of games loading different applications. I could not tell any loading difference running these laptops side by side, even though the SSDs theoretically are twice as fast. 8 to 64 RAM speed, Scar 18 much faster at 216 gig sticks at DDR5 5600 compared to the DDR5 3600 that the 128 332 gig sticks, sorry, 432 gig sticks that the Titan was running. That said, Dead Space was the only game where the Scar 18 won. And I believe it was because of the memory speed, I think. Because the CPU was running at a higher clock speed on the Titan, and the GPU was running about the same. Basically, just CPU bottlenecked a little bit, it looked like. I don't know. That was the only explanation for why I could think that the Titan lost in Dead Space. So, yeah, very interesting. Okay, getting into the game performance. The Titan pretty consistently won by about 7 to 10% on average, with the Scar 18 winning Dead Space by about 10%, being the only win. Now, Hogwarts Legacy was also an outlier, with the Titan literally doubling the FPS of the Scar 18. Something buggy was going on with I think the Scar 18 was underperforming, quite frankly. I don't know what was going on with the optimization in Hogwarts Legacy with the Scar 18. And then number two, the Titan was just going ham with the highest FPS I've ever seen in Hogwarts Legacy, like by about 40 or so, I think, with the same settings being applied. So phenomenal performance in Hogwarts Legacy. It maybe is related to the RAM optimization being 4 sticks of RAM. Hogwarts Legacy being one of the few games that uses a ton of RAM allocation. I don't know. It's an interesting example of performance difference that is hard to determine the exact reason without more technical investigation. Overall, the Titan clearly had better 1% lows in many of the games, sometimes doubling or 2.5 times the Scar 18's 1% lows, which is very significant in terms of gameplay smoothness. Now, of course, you do have G-Sync, which can help aid the Scar 18 to feeling a bit smoother. But when the 1% lows are stuttering too much, sometimes G-Sync can't compensate for that, and you'll still have significant input lag and stutters when you have those jarring stutters. And I'm not sure what's going on with the stutters there. I don't know. Maybe the RAM needs some optimization. I can't think of the reasons why we're having such bad 1% low stutters in some of those games. And some of them weren't really even that bad. Some of it was just the Titan's 1% lows were just phenomenal, way above normal. So, and that's partially, I think, because the CPU power allocation in the Titan was consistently about 10 to 20 watts higher than the Scar 18. And then you also have the 4 sticks of RAM that could be aiding the 1% low optimization. When the CPU needs to go access data, there's multiple sticks to access that data through, and that may significantly improve accessibility to the in-game assets to improve 1% low performance. More testing would need to be required to verify that, though. Overall, the Titan had, I think the Titan from a gameplay perspective was a clear winner today, by a large enough margin that you could be confident if you bought the Titan knowing that you were going to get more performance, at least, than the Scar 18. Now, price to performance justification for the $53.99 price tag versus $38.99 price tag, that is a huge difference in price, and probably it far exceeds the price to value versus your performance you're getting for your money. So for price to performance, the Scar 18 still beats the Titan. But if you were to get the lower spec 64 gigs of RAM and only 2 terabyte SSD version of the Titan, which comes in, I think it's like $700 or $800 cheaper, that becomes a little bit more questionable. Like, do you still get the same performance benefit with only 64 gigs of RAM compared to the Scar 18? At that point, if you still get the 7 to 10% performance gain, and at that point it would only be costing $700 more, well, maybe it's worth it at that point. I don't know. That's a pretty significant performance gain for your money. And I think it's likely that the Titan is probably going to be the fastest air-cooled gaming laptop probably for this year because of the factory overclock on the VBIOS is the main reason. Now, could Asus do that on their side of things? I don't know, maybe in the background, but Asus hasn't done that. Their engineers have not pushed the laptop to the limit like that. So yeah, the other company we know have pushed the factory VBIOS to a higher clock speed is XMG or Electronics, and if you're in the United States. So, but typically XMG does not push the extra high boost clock unless you're running the water cooler. So running the water cooler is probably the only scenario where the XMG Neo 16 would consistently beat the Titan. And that's, that makes the whole thing much more clunky. So overall, Titan 18HX is the winner today for gaming performance, but value for your money, we have the Scar 18 winning out. So I hope all of you enjoyed this side-by-side performance comparison with these two monster gaming laptops. Big shout out and thank you to Asus for sending me the Scar 18 and MSI for sending me the Titan 18HX. I'm going to see if I can get some more high-end gaming laptops to do some more side-by-side benchmarks and tests. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Brandon out. Now, let me check chat for the live stream before we go, okay? Okay. I added a keyboard protection on the GT77 and that actually dampens the key noise quite a bit. Interesting. The Titan wins for me thanks to the 3 SSD slots and better RAM expansion capability, alongside better reputation of MSI to me. One SSD Gen 5 slot on the Titan goes pretty hard. That's true, but I haven't checked. Last year when I tried to buy a Gen 5 SSD, I couldn't even buy one. And the ones you could buy were meant for desktops only, and they had built-on heat sinks that were like this big because the Gen 5 SSDs get so hot that I don't even know if you can use them in a laptop or not. So, yeah, yeah. LSP says, thanks to a sale, the Titan with the 128 gig costs the same as the Scar 18 with 64 gigs in Australia. Both are RAID 0. Now, pricing in different regions will vary from company to company. This is one of my best morning shows. Oh, well, it's in the evening right now for me. Scar 18 just makes the gaming such a pleasure. Man, it makes all the difference. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you'd be happy with either of these laptops. Both of these laptops are epic. Really great gaming laptops overall, I think. Yeah. Motorhead, I just finished updating and setting up my Scar 18. I get goosebumps looking at it. Years of using a GTX 760 and a 60 hertz $50 screen is just I'm just mind blown. Yeah, that is a huge upgrade. That is a huge upgrade. Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in the live stream. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. We've got the Aorus 17X 2024 version. We'll see if Aorus fixed it. They sent it to me this last week. So we'll get that updated and do a live stream with that. And then I'm talking to a few other brands to see if we can get some more laptops. Maybe the Blade 18, maybe the Acer Predator 18, Triton 17X. We'll see. Got lots of stuff in store. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon